Good morning. I guess it's good afternoon for the East Coast in 1 minute, but we're literally going to open the doors now. In 1 minute after the hour, we're going to launch the new PP. Just in time. We've been looking for this for so many months, and here it is. So right in our holiday, we get a chance to work together again, which is fantastic. So come on in. This is a webinar. Everyone's got a front row seat. And hey, as you come in to help Joseph and I really target this conversation to you, if you go to the chat box, start interacting with us, let us know what city you're in, right? And this way we kind of know who's in the room. There's definitely local programs, right? Different counties, different cities have local programs. We're going to talk about the broader ones here, but just kind of want to tune in to who's on the online here to start doing it. And then definitely, we'll give you kind of the broad overviews, but based on your specific outcomes, I mean, the call to action here is get on a call with Joseph and potentially myself, and we'll get in. Joseph is an expert in these SBA lending programs, the PPP. Can definitely drill down to what might be helpful to you. So that's kind of the call to action, beyond the foundation that we lay out in today's webinar. But you're definitely coming in, so let's go chat box. I'm coming in off vacation for this event. It's so exciting, huh, Joseph?
Well, the opportunity to help businesses get money that they don't have to pay back, it's worth stopping vacation or your holiday break for that. It's certainly great news, and certainly makes you wonder, what else the future holds in terms of government programs. But this is here and now. This is an opportunity for every business owner to strengthen their business, add to cash flow. It's nice to be able to talk about something positive like
that. Yeah. When it's go time, it's go time, right? I see we got Ray here from Ohio, and Marcus. I see Tanika. She's a good friend in Pennsylvania. Known her for, I don't know, maybe a decade now. Salt Lake City. Good. We got coast to coast. This is going to be a good event. It's worth coming in for, right? San Diego, Fernando. My son's name is Don Fernando, so that's I see the name Fernando. My ears perk up. Yeah, local people, Bethesda. I'm in Bethesda, right outside of DC, Nick. So it's good to see somebody local. How about you, Joseph? You recognize anybody coming in on the chat box?
I recognize a couple names, sure, and wow, all over the country for this discussion. So yeah, that's great.
I love this kind of event. So Joseph, you ready to jump in? We're 2 minutes
out. Sure, yeah. I think we have a lot of ground to cover. I know everybody's has other things to do, but let's get into it.
Okay, so to kick things off, my name is Kirk. I'm the CEO of Foresight CFO. So we do, through Growth CFO and accounting, we team up with CEOs, really help them do better, use the numbers to make better decisions and follow through. In addition, I teach financial management at Georgetown University. So it's kind of a, 30 years into it, it's kind of a calling to do this kind of work. So I'm really happy to have my friend Joseph on the phone, who's an expert at, getting funded. And so, Joseph, do you mind introducing yourself a bit here?
Sure. My name is Joseph Muse. I'm the owner, founder of Business GPS. I started about 8 years ago with a very unique model, which was helping businesses around the country on contingency. So businesses that are struggling with cash flow, businesses that potentially have too much debt. Think about a consultant or a turnaround advisor who says, hey, we're in this together, and if 6 months or 3 months down the road we get to a better spot financially, then I get paid based off of, we get paid based off of some of that performance. So it's a very unique model. I think we're the only ones out there who do it, who fight for businesses that way. It really creates a common vested interest in the outcome.
Yeah, you literally resolve everything on the liability side. I mean, get the debt, the business capitalized correctly, access to working capital, resolve the tax issues, the accounts payable issues, and you do it all on contingency, which is why even a bigger reason on why I like you.
Right. We deal with a lot of fires. Some fires are very big. millions of dollars worth of tax liabilities or foreclosure notices. And sometimes the fires haven't really started yet, but they're heading in that direction. So how can we help the business pivot and increase their cash flow and make sure the fire never really develops?
Yeah, that's fantastic. So to drill down a little bit more about who's in the room, we got 2 poll questions. If we can get your response, it'd be great to get at least 70% or more response on this, and that way we can tailor kind of our conversation, our examples to who you are. So the first question is, what is your expected top line revenue this year in 2020? Right, it's December. If you don't know, I want to talk with you to help you know what your numbers are. And the second question is, do you expect to apply for the new PPP? And I don't know, I kind of go, why the hell not, right?
Right. I think everybody wants to say yes. Then it just comes down to, do I qualify for the second round? The criteria is a little bit different. But there are some people, or some business owners who haven't or didn't make the cutoff for the first PPP. So, and that has been reopened. So if you didn't get the first round, then there's a potential opportunity if you don't qualify for the second.
Yeah, that's great. And we have 75% respondents. So just a few more seconds. If you want to get your vote in for the 2 questions, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the response. Your individual response is anonymous, but we'll kind of see who's here. So let's take a look here. Okay, here we go. Okay, kind of take let me share results, folks. We can see together. So 70% of us have businesses doing 0 to 5 million, 14, 5 to 10, and then up from there. I mean, so we got a nice cross section of business to work with. How does that look to you, Joseph?
That's about what I expected. I'm surprised by the 3 no's, but that may be because they feel like they don't qualify. And so I completely understand that there are some limitations there. That's about in line with what I expected.
Yeah, let's find out. So 70% definitely want to get funded. 30% maybe, and then I'm finance guys, so I round things up, and then there's 3 no's. But let's find out. Maybe there's either the PPP is a good option, but also we're going to talk briefly about other options, right? Just
Right.
make sure everyone has the working capital they need. So, all right, hey, thank you for your response. That's fantastic. So let's go, Joseph. It's go time. What is the new PPP?
So as I'm sure all of us know, that's why we're here. Congress and the president signed off on a very large stimulus bill. There are a lot of components to it. We're still trying to unwrap some of the detail, but it's very clear that there's another round of PPP coming. And even if you applied and received the first, you're still eligible for another round. They've tightened it up a little bit so that it's a little bit more focused or tailored on the businesses they want to receive the benefit. In this round, we kind of outlined it here on the slide. They're trying to avoid the large companies getting the PPP. So you need to have fewer than 300 employees. And I think the biggest criteria that's different is this third bullet, which is you need to have a sustained revenue loss of at least 25% during a quarter in 2020 compared to the comparable in 2019. So that can be the second quarter of 2020 is down at least 25% compared to the second quarter of 2019. It can be the third quarter. I haven't read anything about the fourth quarter yet, but presumably, that would apply as well as this PPP runs through the end of March. So I think that's going to be the key set of documents that they're going to be looking for is verifying that 25% drop in revenue. And then the other kind of large criteria bullet point is you need to have used or confirmed you will use the full amount of your first PPP. So obviously the point there is you need the money to be able to sustain the business and to be able to keep people employed. But that third bullet of a 25% drop is the critical piece. And I've talked to hundreds of business owners since last week when we started taking reservations for the PPP. And some business owners didn't, hey, I'm not sure if I qualify or not, take a look. And I've been amazed at business owners because they tend to be positive people. Boy, did I really have a 25% drop? And sure enough, they did. So if nothing else, it's a good exercise to go back and look at your numbers, 2020 versus 2019.
Yeah, it's really good.
So let's go to the next slide there, Kurt. I know we have a lot. I have a lot of questions. I feel like we have a lot to cover. So if Kirk, if you feel like I need to focus in on something, a little extra time, let me know. So the benefits of the PPP, I'm sure everybody here understands that the idea that you're going to get money in and not have to pay it back is such a wonderful thing. It's going to work very similar to how it did last time in terms of the calculation side of it. 2.5 times the average monthly payroll. For what period of time, we haven't clarified that, but from what we're been told, it's very comparable in terms of the timing and on the calculation. They've added the fact that if you're in a certain SIC code, restaurants and lodging businesses can now get 3.5 times the average monthly payroll. Payroll expenses, obviously, they want you to spend in order to get forgiveness of it. They want you to spend it on payroll. That's the intent of it. And maybe, Kirk, that's more of a follow-up for your firm in terms of making sure they qualify for forgiveness, making sure that they spend it the right way, etc. This relief package, there's also some there's also some additional detail. I focus on PPP and making sure my clients get funded as quickly as possible. But there is some clarification in the stimulus bill regarding how the loan is forgiven, that it will be treated as tax-free event to businesses. So not to get into too much accounting detail, but if somebody gives you $50,000 and you don't pay it back, that should be a taxable event. But in this case, they're saying it's a non-taxable event. So it's an extra bonus. And I think that kind of gets to a bigger picture of these things are still playing out with the government, or things change with the government. And so I don't know about what you're suggesting to people, Kirk. I've heard people say, hey, wait to apply for forgiveness because they might be more lenient as time goes by.
Yeah, especially that tax question is key, right? Because there's kind of how things would be treated. Normally if you get funded and it's forgiven, it's treated as taxable income, and it's been back and forth. And the latest pronouncement is that it's not part of your tax equation. So definitely, I think wait. A lot of people want to get things done fast, but in this case, I would kind of wait and see. Especially the political environment is changing so much. I'd wait and see, let that settle out a little bit. Hey, there's quite a few really good questions coming in. So once we're going to go through the benefits, the criteria, and the process. And I think that's a good time that we can start answering some of the questions. We'll probably answer some of your questions just going through the basic setup in the webinar. So does that sound good to you, Joseph?
I think that sounds good. And let me come back to the point of timing for a second. I think waiting on forgiveness makes a lot of sense. And for those people who have waited, they're getting more benefit. On the flip side, applying immediately for the PPP is a very smart move, in my opinion. One, the obvious, the sooner you apply, the sooner you get funded. That's true. But two, what we saw on our end, because we had significant number of PPPs that we handled and EIDLs that we handled earlier this year. The process or the paperwork to get a PPP in April was very light, very easy. The process to get the PPP in the middle of July was twice as difficult, took twice as long. Same thing with the EIDL. EIDL, May, June, July, a lot easier. Now clients are waiting 2 months to get funded on their EIDL. So the point of that is things change with the government overnight. For example, the EIDL grant, every business gets $10,000. Boy, that changed quickly. So the point of that is, I think the sooner you can get in for the PPP, the better, because the criteria is going to tighten up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Getting back to the slide, obviously, it's payroll focused and payroll driven. So there's no credit check like the EIDL. There's no personal guarantee like a lot of other money might require. So a lot of benefit there. The collateral requirements are waived. The PPP borrowers, you've got an 8-week period or a 24-week period. And I know there's some questions related to that, Kirk, that have already been asked here. And then there, in this stimulus bill, they've made some additional adjustments where they're clearly going after or wanting to fund more minority-owned businesses and more businesses that are in low-income areas. So I think that's another important piece. And the fine print on that is still yet to be seen, at least from our standpoint. Okay, Kirk, want to go to the next slide?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting discussion because they have widened the net a little bit in terms of who might qualify, nonprofits, housing cooperatives, etc. I don't know how many people we have on this webinar that fit that criteria. The other thing that's important is for the PPP, think about it as W-2 employees. But there's also the idea that as a business owner, that you have your own K1s, you have your own income. So if you read that first sentence, small businesses and many independent contractors will be eligible. So if you're an independent contractor, your own separate tax ID for the work you do, you are or may be eligible for PPP. It's not just W-2. So we've had business owners in the past where they've received PPP, that first round of PPP money for their business or W-2s, but let's say they had real estate holdings or other income that's not always W-2, we were able to get them another $10,000 or $15,000 for that. And I think that's a very important point. A lot of people miss that point. I think the rest here is a bit of what we've already covered. 25% reduction, just to clarify that a little bit, that can be for any of the quarters, Q1, Q2, Q3, and I think it's going to end up being as well for Q4 in 2020 compared to the comparable in 2019. I had a client today who started his business in Q1 of 2020, and they were asking, hey, can we qualify? And the answer is, if you had a really good Q1 of 2020 and then Q2 dropped off 25% or Q3 dropped off 25%, that Q1 becomes the benchmark of 2020. You might also qualify, but that means you probably needed to have a really good Q1 to begin with. If that makes sense. So, okay, next slide, Kirk. The process. So this is what everybody wants to know. How do I do it? If I qualify, how do I do it? We're still waiting for some of the forms and fine print to come from the SBA. Have 10 days to get it in place. So for all intents and purposes, I think we're looking at the second week of January to when the SBA is going to be processing application. You need, like the first PPP, you need to go through an SBA lender. I think a lot of us remember the news or the experience of dealing with Wells Fargo, Bank of America.
Sure do.
it was not pretty. I don't know, Kirk, what your clients experienced at that time, but a lot of headaches.
Yeah. I mean, we basically found that the bigger banks like Capital One didn't even open their portal until after the funding was out. I mean, it was pretty obnoxious to say the least. It was the community banks that came through, and then obviously you have a direct pipeline. You put application directly into the SBA, so it's faster that way.
Yeah, and I remember the community banks, mid-April, everybody was trying to find out okay, it's community banks, they're funding. And then all of a sudden, that particular community bank that was funding would get overwhelmed with applications to go, okay, we're not taking anymore.
Yep.
So what we ended up doing was in the second half of April, we aligned ourselves with an SBA lender who's a hedge fund. And they started processing, and they were very active from late April to early July when they stopped. And typically, we were seeing in the beginning 3 to 4 days to funding, towards the end maybe 5 to 8 days. Still relatively quick. I was talking to somebody yesterday just in general about banks. Banks aren't set up to work weekends and work evenings, right, to process your paperwork. So, the way that we do it is with an SBA lender who is a hedge fund. They're very active and aggressive. I think they're the only ones, I don't know, but I think they're the only ones who have set in place already a portal for clients, for companies to register to get in line for the SBA PPP. I tell people if you had a really good experience with your bank the first go round, right? You have somebody there that you can talk to because the paperwork is going to be different this time, especially if you apply for the PPP in April. It was already different by the time you hit June, let alone now in December and January with the new requirements. It's going to be an extra layer of paperwork. So if you have a local bank and you have a point of contact there and they were good to you last time, I think by all means, that's a reasonable thing to do again. What we've been doing is what I call reserving a place in line. We get some of your basic information. It's going to be funded on a first come, first served basis. I worry about, you apply in January, that it's going to be very different come February. It's going to be very different come March, because that's what we experienced already with the SBA on the prior PPP and the EIDL program. So we've probably registered over 100 companies so far. Again, it's a first come, first served basis. We're waiting on the final paperwork to come in from the SBA, which I think will be the end of next week. And then, you can fully submit, be on somebody's desk at the SBA the second week of January and hopefully get funded. The other part to all this is that we charge a contingency fee if you get funded. If we handle it and we go through this process and you get over $25,000 worth of funding, then we charge $2,500 after you get funded. If it's less than $25,000, then we charge $1,250. So I just want to disclose that and come back around to your local bank. If that's a good place, go to your local bank immediately. Ask them, hey, what do I need to do to get my place in line? If you have issues with that or didn't have a easy process the first go around, then you can certainly contact myself, contact Kirk's office, and we can take.
Yeah, and that's I haven't seen this is like as of Sunday, right? It was approved and nobody quite knew what was going to happen. I haven't seen the banks that we work with across our clients globally. I haven't seen any bank open its portal yet. Definitely, if you have a bank that helped you before, talk with them, find out if they can get you in. The only person I found that can get us in has been Joseph, right? Because he has direct access, and so get in the queue, get your documents in there, and then you can. Joseph, I would think that people could expect all kinds of stuff. I mean, like the EIDL loan, the government likes to kick it back first, and then you go at it a second time. You appeal it to get in. What do you expect anything like that with this round of PPP? Are they going to kick people out for technicalities, or are they going to?
Well, they're certainly not going to move forward with the application. So, I'm not, this is here to be informative, but obviously the way that we do it for our clients is because we're only getting paid when you get funded. So we're on top of it. Hey, here's the new paperwork. This is the paperwork they need. Let's help you submit that paperwork. If you have questions, we can certainly answer those questions. We try to be a very active partner or participant in the process. But what the SBA is going to do is they're just going to sit on it until somebody, if it's not complete, until somebody picks up the phone and reaches out to them. Because trying to send an email to the SBA, as some of you have probably experienced, is not the easiest thing in the world. So I saw a question pop up that my voice might have been breaking up when I was talking about the charges. So if you want us to help, very hands-on. We try to get you funded as quickly as possible for the full amount. And that's the other piece of it, is that sometimes people calculate it the wrong way and end up shorted. We charge $2,500 after you get funded, if you get funded over $25,000. If you get funded below $25,000, then we'll charge you half of that with $1,250, again, after you get funded.
Yeah, very, very reasonable given the effort that goes into getting things right so that it goes through smoothly. So very good. Is there anything you want to say about the process before we talk about how fast can
I think a lot of that really is more on the lender side, some of those steps. The key there is going to be, as soon as the paperwork comes out from the SBA, we want to be on top of it. So we already want to be communicating with our clients about what they were asking for at the end of July when the PPP, or the beginning of August when the PPP closed. We want to have that package together already. And we certainly want to be able to have verification that the revenue drop, that 25% threshold, that's going to be critical to have that information verified.
Yeah, very good. So let's talk about how fast they can be funded, and then let's go. I think from there, let's go to there's like 20 questions in the queue.
Sure. So this already, we covered this. The SBA administrator has 10 days to establish the new regulations. Then, of course, they've got to be able to put that on paper and provide that to the public. The applications can be processed in 72 hours. We were hitting that from May, June. Come July, it slowed down. But the hope is, and I know that there's a lot of pressure right now on the SBA to get funding out there. Those are the articles that I read. So, if we do this right, you should be able to apply on a Monday and get funding by Friday. And then, of course, the last item relates to the eligible expenses over an 8-week or 24.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It doesn't get lined up. If you remember the first round of PPP funding, it disappeared fast. They came out with a second round, and the second round was never fully used. Since the requirements are different, I mean, it's hard to say what to expect. I kind of given that, the cumulative pressure on small businesses building, definitely get in line. Either with your current lender or with Joseph, get your application in, make sure it's a clean application so that it goes through, get it done right. So, Joseph, why don't we go to the questions? There's a question and answer queue, and there's one. We'll bounce around between the question and answer queue, and then go to the chat. The chat discussion. But the first question here is from Rusty. He's asking, do you have an idea of what will be required to prove that the 25% drop in revenue?
That's a great question, Rusty. And the SBA is focused. The reason why things have become more restrictive on the EIDL and near the end of PPP is that they're focused on the fraud that is out there. And so you can imagine if a business owner is only down 22% in a quarter, they go, let me change the numbers, make it 25. So what I'm telling business owners is be prepared not only to show it on financial statements, but to show it on bank statements. If you can show it both ways, then I feel like you should have a relatively smooth process. And the only other question I had, Kirk, and all this is an accounting question is that on a cash basis or is that on an accrual basis? But I guess we'll see when the fine print comes out. But to Rusty's point, be prepared to show it both ways.
Yeah, I would echo your comment. My expectation is that it's on an accrual basis. That is what GAAP accounting is based on, not cash basis, how you run your household, not your business. So I would expect an accrual basis. That means the work you did, the payroll tax, the payroll liability that you incurred, so all accrual. We'll wait and see what the guidance is to say whether that's true or not. But I would anticipate accrual basis. But yeah, you want good, clean financials that show that. And the only way to have good, clean financials is to use them every month, like a scoreboard, as a habit. And the second thing is, if you get audited, they're definitely going to want to look at the bank statements as a third-party verification, third-party documentation to verify that it correlates with your financial statements. So those.
Yeah, and I think, Kirk, just to add, to add a couple points to that. One, it's going to be interesting because a lot of small businesses do run on a cash basis. But two, I think it's important that your financials look. This is where the person at the SBA is looking at this. Does this look professional? Does this look like it was made overnight? Or this came out of a proper accounting system where everything's laid out? They have to be good. There's a little bit of that smell test, I believe, going on with the EIDL. And I think it's also going to apply to the PPP because it's nobody at the SBA wants to have their file be the headline for fraud tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. There's information you provide in the package going in, so financials, maybe bank statements, and then there's if you get audited, which the threshold is kind of anything that less than 2 million or less is not going to be audited. Maybe the previous PPP 150,000 and below might be easily forgiven, but just to be ready. I mean, have your packages ready. Be audit and due diligence ready. The third piece of evidence is going to be your 2020 tax return, right? What do you officially report out? If you get selected for audit, you want to have everything speak for itself. So good question. Do you want to
go? That's a great question.
Yeah. Do you want to go? Kristen has a question here about operations where they started. Previously you had to be in business as of February 2020. She started her business in March of 2020. Do you have any information about whether that criteria has moved or not?
That's going to be my understanding is that it's what I've seen is still February, but then I've also seen Q1 revenue being the benchmark. So that might be a good follow-up if we've got her email address that we can follow up with directly. I still see the February date, at least with information I've seen, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be what's going to come out in the final regulation.
Yeah, good question. And do you want to say another question about 1099 subcontractors? My understanding is W-2 and the 1099 contractors can apply for themselves. Is that what you spoke about it? Can you kind of speak?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. And that was a sticky point the first go around with the PPP because originally it was put out there that if you're paying subcontractors 1099s, that you can roll them up into your basis for the PPP funding you're going to get. And that quickly changed. That was out there for a week or two, the first PPP. So this time around, the way they're doing it is, I think they did it with the first PPP forward. This time around, the independent contractor, Steve Jones, who works for you, Steve can go get his own PPP for himself based on a multiple of 2.5 times his monthly, as long as his annual doesn't exceed 100,000. So you do the math. In that example, Steve can get approximately $20,000 PPP, and we had a lot of success with that the first go round, and a lot of people miss that. And the other part, this goes back to the earlier part of the presentation, the business owner. That might apply to the business owner. Not only is the business owner getting the PPP on the W-2, but they might also have non-W-2 income.
Yeah, very good. Good. Got time for a couple more here. Charles asks, is the 25% in revenue, or can it be 25% worse on like EBITDA or profit? It's revenue. It's based on your top lines, your customer sales activity. It's not based on a measurement of profitability. Is that correct, Joseph?
That's correct. That's correct. But, they're trying, and I give them credit, they're trying to find a very simple way of looking at companies. Do you qualify or not? Have you been damaged or not? And that is a relatively easy way. We have kind of these other scenarios. Hey, I opened up March 15th, or this or that or whatever. But I think, again, to their credit, they've got to process millions of applications between now and mid-April, end of March. So that's probably as good a criteria as.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, and it so to just in fairness, kind of expect the whole purpose is with the PPP, since the first one is to move fast, right? It's not the programs are not perfect, they're not vetted. At least this time around, we have more experience with it. So expect clarification, right? Especially with the tax side of it. Is it taxable income or not, kind of thing?
And expect changes. Expect what was acceptable on your January 15th application is not going to be sufficient come February 5th, because they're winging it somewhat, and I do worry about fraud taking place in the system. They're already worried about that, so it's just going to get whoever applies on March 31st is going to have a very different and very difficult experience getting their PPP, in my opinion.
Yeah, so definitely be ready for it. And do you want to comment? We have a next slide about additional programs. I can click to that. There's a question about the EIDL loan. What is that? What do you expect? What changes? What funding levels do you expect in that area?
Well, they have added some EIDL grants, and they have added some special programs for music venues, movie theater, large gathering environments. There's some additional money on the minority development institutions, etc. I haven't seen a ton of the fine print on that, so I'm still learning what's required there. To be candid, the EIDL program itself, which is expected to expire here at the end of the month, is very likely going to be renewed. So for those people who either haven't applied for the EIDL, please get it in as soon as possible. And for those who have their EIDL under consideration or reconsideration, the clock will continue past 12/31. So for those who might not be familiar, the EIDL was originally set up by the SBA for a larger dollar amount for things like hurricanes, natural disasters. And so when this hit, they reduced it to a $150,000 loan over 30 years at 3.75%, no personal guarantee. It's a fantastic program if you haven't already applied for it. The caveat there is it's a little bit of an underwriting process. We're looking at your financials and we're looking at your credit score to figure out, okay, is this person worthy, but is this person qualified financially like an underwriter would look at it for a loan? So I think the EIDL program is certainly going to continue. And as some of these new programs come to light, we'll be able to share it with everybody. If you think you qualify, then we'd love to follow up with you and so we can do in terms of getting you clarification on what the requirements can be.
Yeah. Very good. Is there there's a ton of questions here. That's about these programs. Hey, definitely we're going to share contact information and definitely reach out to Joseph directly. I work side by side with him on the Growth CFO and accounting side, but he's the go-to person on the lending side. Lot of, as expected, these are kind of technical programs and want to get the rules right. Jose, I think we should let's talk about. Do you want to talk about additional programs anymore, or or we can talk about common hurdles for a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I know everybody's, is a lot of detail here, and everybody has things to do. We're already looking at it now, about 40 minutes in, so we can get to maybe some of the additional slides.
Yeah, let's kind of, and we've been kind of talking around this, but really nail it down. I mean, going in with your application, make sure that you have your the number one thing is W-2 payroll. So you have your financial statement side of that, have your numbers nailed down, professional financial statements. The best habit is to literally use your financial, your monthly P&L and balance sheet like a scoreboard, and that way they're clean for not only for things like this, but also to run your business. So have that. Your banker, lender could definitely ask for it. We expect that to be part of the package. And then likewise, your payroll reports, especially if you go through a third-party payroll provider, it's very easy to get your 941s, which are those quarterly reports showing the payroll and how much you paid for all the the FICA, FUTA, SUTA kind of stuff. So those going in, those are key documents. Your bank statement might also be included, and then everything you have, including your 2021 tax return, bundled up into an audit-ready package, right? And it, with everything you need, if you're asked, you can produce. This is the basis. Keep emails. Like if you have an email discussion with Joseph, keep those emails. But that's the basis in which you made your decision to submit your application, so that you have that as support. So common hurdles to avoid is the lack of documentation and not remembering the basis on why you took a certain action 6 months earlier. And doing those three things: payroll reports, having a clean number story, your financials, and then packaging everything up into an audit ready folder will allow you to be that much more ready. I know in the first PPP, people talk about set up a separate account, run the money through a separate account. That's useful if you have really poor accounting practices, almost like you don't have accounting practices, so you can show how the money was used for the purposes, the allowable purposes within that 8-week to 24-week use period. If you have good accounting practice, you don't need that. You got all the evidence you need. Dollars are fungible. Money comes in and it's used for the intended purposes within the intended time frame. That 24 weeks, you're in good shape. You don't need the added complication of setting up new bank accounts. Is there, Joseph? That's kind of the basic common hurdles that we can avoid by good practices. Is there anything else that steps out to you that you want to highlight for the?
I would just say that these SBA underwriters, they see thousands of these, so they have a very trained eye. It's like looking at resumes. After a while, you look at 50 resumes, 100 resumes, you glean things that you didn't glean on the first resume. So just trying to make it as polished as possible for the SBA. Don't give them an opportunity to say no. Just give them yes.
And make it real easy. Okay, so people are asking about the fees for your work again. So let's go through it to make sure it's perfectly clear. But you work on contingency. If this again, Joseph helps us on some pretty difficult situations. I mean, even pre-COVID, full turnarounds where it's a really scary picture to walk into, and he helps us with the CEOs work ourselves out of those types of situations. And it's always contingency, right? And Joseph, his firm gets paid when we accomplish what we need to, as far as debt, accounts payable, tax liabilities. And so, Joseph, can you fill us in a little bit more about your fees for this activity?
Sure. So, as you were saying, Kirk, everything we do is on contingency. Been in business for 8 years and maybe 2,500 companies that have come through our doors. Everything's about serving the business. It has to benefit the business first. So for the PPP, we charge after you get funding. We help you go through the process. We reserve your place in line, and we charge $2,500 if you receive PPP funding over $25,000. And we bill you, that's due after you receive the funding. If you get less than $25,000, we cut that fee in half to $1,250. And again, that's due after you get
Yeah. So any more questions? A couple questions like that. So that should be pretty clear. I mean, if there's any more questions, definitely shoot Joseph an email. He's pretty upfront about that. So let's go. We're kind of at the 45-minute mark, Joseph. So let's kind of bring us into the landing pattern here to wrap things up. But
Yeah, absolutely. So decide if you want to get funding. I think it's more about, yes, I'd like to get funding. Do I qualify? So if you still have questions after this, do I qualify or not? Does my business qualify? Do I qualify as an independent contractor? Just please follow up with an email, and we'll get right back to you. We'll have a discussion about it. We'll dig a little deeper, and we'll do everything we can to get you to qualify, or at least show you what you need to do to be able to qualify.
Yeah, very good. So definitely the call to action is call Joseph. I mean, he's a quick to answer kind of guy, or shoot him an email, right? For anything directly related to funding, he's the best go-to person. His team members will connect with you and based on your interest, work through things with you. For us, if there's what we do is we help CEOs win clients, keep the ones they have the right people capacity, access to capital, and achieve strong financial performance. And we do that through Growth CFO services and accounting. So if you want to learn more about that, we make the first step very easy. Let's get into a 3-week project to drive a result for your business and really, get a chance to get our hands dirty underneath the hood to find out where there's opportunity. So if you're interested in running that side of your business with more clarity and confidence, shoot me an email. And Joseph and I do work in tandem, right? If there's certain things that he needs, we might be the group to help get that ready for your application. So we're literally at the time boy, there's a lot of questions. That's why I'm kind of hesitating. We're at time. Do you want to answer a couple more questions, Joseph?
Sure. And then Kirk, are we, if people want more information, are we sharing the slide? I know I just saw a question about, how to reach out to us and contact us. People need our contact information again, or they want to come back to the slide. We can certainly share it with everybody, correct? Or you're going to post it online?
Yeah, definitely no later than tomorrow. We're going to send the slide deck out to everybody who attended. And meanwhile, if you jot down, I got Joe's email and phone number on the screen now. So if you want to jot that down for quicker action, that could be beneficial.
And sure, Kirk, if you have some more questions you want to address, would be great.
Yeah, let's kind of see, I'll take the first one here in the queue here. Is there any special relief for transportation businesses?
Not that I've seen. That's a great question. Not that I've seen.
Yeah, and Ash, potentially your local economic development whatever government organization, the state organization, a lot of times they do have special grants for different industries. But
that's a great point.
Yeah, so you shake the bush. It's a little bit of a hassle going through the government stuff. But Joseph, is that do you get involved with that kind of stuff as well? Do you search local?
Absolutely. So I'm out here in Los Angeles now, and they've had different rounds of funding for local businesses, and we've helped a number of local businesses get funding off of that. And then back to transportation in and of itself, I haven't seen, but to your point, locally and inside this legislation, it talks about, hey, if you're in what they qualify as a lower income area or a minority-owned business, maybe there's an opportunity for a fit there. So it might take a little bit more effort to find it, but it could be there.
And answer the question. Some people want to know how they can get in. Literally email Joseph. He'll have a conversation with you and get you in the queue.
So email is by far the best, because then we can schedule a time, set aside 15, 20 minutes to really go through this. If you're trying to figure out if you qualify or don't qualify, or other things that you know.
Yeah, and there's questions about, hey, I got PPP and EDIL before. Am I eligible for this new round of PPP funding?
And the answer is yes, as long as you meet the criteria we were talking about earlier in terms of the 25% drop. Can you confirm that you have spent the first PPP or are going to spend the first PPP? So, odds are the answer is yes to that question. You think about almost every business has been impacted in one quarter by at least 25%. So most people are going to qualify for it. Then it becomes about documenting it and making sure you deliver a package to the SBA right the first time.
Yeah. And so there's a lot here, a lot of technical things. I very much appreciate the Q&A going back and forth. But hey, we're at time. Want to respect your time. I will send out the contact information so that you can follow up. Email Joseph and schedule a time to go through specifically what you need for your business. PPP activities for me, it's like, why not? The chance to capitalize your business. Trusting that you're an ethical business owner, you're putting it to good use the way it was intended, then why not get that advantage. We still got a bit of a runway here to work ourselves out of COVID and really kind of political discord, that kind of thing. So it'd be a wise move to capitalize your business as well as you can. So
it's so simple. Businesses go out of business for lack of cash. So why not try to, during uncertain times, stockpile some cash? And there are other programs out there that are still funding beyond the PPP and the EIDL. But I'm sorry to interrupt, Kirk, but sometimes we overcomplicate things. It's really simple. Cash is what keeps us in business, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So why not be a little bit more active in terms of getting that cash into our bank account?
Yeah. So very good. So we're going to wrap it up here. We're at time. Joseph, thank you so much for joining me, because when this broke, you got me out. Kirk, coming off vacation, we got work to do.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad just to share it. And even if you don't have to use us, our business, whatever, just the more dollars we can get into the hands of business owners, the sooner the better. I mean, that's really what we want to do. So thanks for putting this together, Kirk.
Yeah, and for everyone on the phone, definitely reach out. I mean, it can't hurt to have a conversation to find out what can be done for your business. So definitely reach out to Joseph, and look forward to you to the next for all of you, the next event. Let's keep being smarter about how we plan and execute the right things in our business. So thank you so much for participating today.